All right, so I think we're going to be going live in 3, 2. All right, everybody, live from the internet, we bring you this week's episode of CoCoTALK, the nation's leading color computer talk show. Matter of fact, probably, other than the CoCoFEST, the only color computer talk show. This week is sponsored by Popstar Pilot. It is a crunchy, nutritious cereal that is filled with MSG and crystal meth. And we want to invite all you kids to pour yourself a bowl of Popstar Pilot Crunchios and drink your Ovaltine. All right. So
right after Metamucil.
Oh, man. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, everybody who's here in the call right now. We'll go ahead and do a shout-out roundabout here. We're starting up on my top left from Australia, Nick Marentes. Good eye, Nick.
Good eye.
Nick, is it 3 a.m. right now for you?
It is 5 a.m.
5 a.m. Close enough. It's damn early. I apologize, but thank you for being here. From the Great White North, we got Curtis Boyle and Bill Noble. Hello, Curtis and Bill.
Hello.
We've got Mark Overholzer with us, first time on cam. How are you, Mark?
Doing fine.
And so far, the bandwidth has not broken the internet. We are pushing the internet's boundaries every day as we continue to use bandwidth. Center is Rick Adams. Hello, Rick. Thanks for being with us again.
Uh-huh.
And new to CoCoTALK this week is Richard. How are you, Richard? Is it Chris Lip?
Yeah, it is Chris Lip. If I was any better, you all wouldn't be able to stand me.
That's right. And Frank Patel just said, hey, all. So Frank Patel is in the chat as well. Hi, Frank. Big West Purdue is here saying, welcome to the internet. D. Bruce Moore is here from Canada. Bruce Moore is here. If you guys want to join us on Skype, add me as a friend on Skype and try to call me. I'll see if I can add you to the call. But thank you all for being here. This is the last week before CoCoFEST. I know I'm not the only one who's excited about going to CoCoFEST next weekend. And why don't we start off with our guest from the furthest area away, but Nick Marentes is wearing a brand new shirt, a very, very handsome and dapper shirt on a very handsome and dapper man there. But how do you like that Popstar Pilot shirt, Nick?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It only took a week to get here.
Only took a week from the U.S. to Australia. That's great. And so that is something that is new for CoCoFEST for 2017 is the fact that we will have Popstar Pilot t-shirts and copies of Popstar Pilot available to purchase at CoCoFEST. Now, the problem, and did you get your new copy too, Nick? You have your new sealed copy of.
I got the first preview one.
Okay, is that the one with the white label?
Yeah, that's right.
The first one we did has a white label, but that was just to test. And John Linville just joined us. Hey, John. So the white label was our test to see how quickly they could make it and what the quality was like. We have redesigned the package so the insert is a full color insert. So what you will be able to have this year is you will be able to buy Popstar Pilot in person at CoCoFEST. Now, I was hoping to have a bunch of those t-shirts to bring with me to sell personally to everyone at CoCoFEST, but when I looked into how much it was going to cost me out of pocket to pay for them, I just literally could not afford it. So I will have a few that I'm bringing for everybody to see, and then I'm hoping that everybody will just be able to order them online. And speaking of ordering online, I just got mine yesterday, and it does take exactly a week. I got the new I'm A CoCo t-shirt, and this is the one that's got the Coco cartoon. And so I will bring this to the show as well to sell. Not to sell, but to show. I mean, if somebody wanted to buy it, they could. But I want to show you guys. I got the new I'm A CoCo coffee mug with the color computer and the multi-pack and the CM8. And then I got the new I'm A CoCo mug that has the colorful Coco cartoon character. These are all drawn by Rick Adams' son, Joel M. Adams, also known as Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. And so, yeah, so that's very cool that, Nick, we're going to be able to represent your Popstar Pilot game and your t-shirt. So we start off with a plug. Why not?
Steve, you got to turn your camera on, though.
What do you mean I got to turn my camera on?
We can't see you.
You're invisible.
Yep. We can't see you at all.
How about now? Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
There you are.
How about those apples? Yeah. So Nick, you like the shirt?
Yeah, it's very good. Nice
Yeah.
colours. Yeah, that's good. Good quality.
Yeah. It's
Now
amazing.
I can go to the nightclubs now and I look cool.
I heard if you
Okay.
wear it long enough, it actually causes you to grow muscles too. So
It's a muscle shirt, right? So that's cool. I'm glad you could join the call, Nick. Big West Purdue says the crazy thing is I used to live close to Chicago, and it never occurred to me to look into the CoCo community. Now I'm halfway across the country. D. Bruce, yeah, well, we're glad you're here. We got, I don't know what everybody wants to talk about. I thought we'd start off by showing off Nick's new shirt. I like that shirt. And yeah, I'll have some of those to look at. I think I mentioned that. It was just too expensive to buy. I went to a local t-shirt shop thinking I could maybe save a couple bucks. I'm like, well, what can you guys make these shirts for? Maybe I'll get you guys to make them and I'll buy them that way. But even then, it's still like $13, $14 to have these shirts made. So there was no inexpensive way for me to buy a dozen shirts and bring them with me. I just don't have that kind of cash right now. But I did get a few printed as well that I can bring so everybody can see them. You can order them online. It takes exactly a week to get a shirt or a coffee mug. That way you get the size you want, the color you want, and there's free shipping right now all the way through CoCoFest. I didn't plan this, but I don't make the website. I don't make the materials. It's just a company that does it. They just happen to be running a promotion for 10 days. So from April 13th through April 23rd, free shipping with promo code FS417. So if you want to get your CoCo shirt or your CoCo mug, now's the best time to do it and get free shipping on that. Good stuff. Good stuff.
The free shipping was a week.
The free shipping promo code is from April 13th through April 23rd. If you use that promo code.
It took a week to get there.
It took a week. Yeah, I ordered it using standard shipping. When I ordered mine, the free shipping promo wasn't out there yet. So I ordered mine last weekend. With standard shipping, I got it within a week. So it takes a certain amount of time to produce them because they produce them on demand. But between the order, production, and shipping, we got them within a week. So pretty good.
How much?
I wasn't sure about that.
Standard shipping's like I ordered 3 items and I think it was about $6. So I ordered a T-shirt and 2 coffee mugs and it was like something like $6 or something. It wasn't terribly expensive in the U.S. Anyways. I don't know what was it to ship to Australia, Nick? Do you know?
Oh, I can't remember. I just ripped the packet open, put the T-shirt on, and didn't even mix.
But it's pretty impressive that these things exist now. Like I've got one company I use to produce DVDs on demand and ship those out. I've got another company now that can make T-shirts and coffee mugs on demand, ship them out. And I've tried to find better prices. It's hard to find a good price on a low volume of anything. When you're buying less than 100 of something, it's really hard to get a good price break on it.
Well, I went for the gold-plated shipping because I wanted to make darn good and sure that it got here before CoCoFEST.
Yeah.
So, and really, that's my fault. I should have ordered it way earlier. But so it sounds like I could have gone for the standard shipping and everything would have been fine. But
Did you get a date looks like the delivery date will be in line with CoCoFEST?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you driving to CoCoFEST, Rick?
Nope.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. So there you go. So yeah, definitely has to be at your door before the day you fly.
I am not using United. I am not going to.
I
I've
don't
already had
understand why
experiences
not.
with United.
Fly the friendly skies. Chappers is asking what size shirts do they come in? They come in every single size, Chappers. If you go to the website, you can see we have infant sizes. We have onesies. We have child-sized T-shirts. We've got adults and women's T-shirts, coffee mugs, possibly juice boxes for all I know. We got a little bit of everything out there. So. But all different sizes. Jimmy Alvarez is here. I hope you're having an awesome day, Steve. Hi, Jimmy. Mark Overholzer saying CoCoFest is next weekend, so that's what this is all about. Yeah, there was a couple of interesting discussions on the mailing list that I'll bring up whenever you guys want to. I don't know what else anybody here wants to talk about. I don't know, Rick, if you want to talk about some things that are on your mind and on your plate. And now we have John Linville here, too. He might have some pearls of knowledge to share with us.
I am curious about what's on the mailing list.
What time what was?
I said that I was interested in what might be happening on the mailing list.
Oh, what my well the discussions I was going to be talking about on the mailing list were a few that came up this week. One of the topics was we got into VCC, and a few people were talking about VCC. I think that forked into a few different directions. I always try to bring up an idea that's in my mind, and I don't know if other people have felt this idea too, that when we talk about, like last week we talked about the community, and now there's different ways to communicate. One way is the mailing list, one way is Facebook. We now have our own way with Skype. We're starting to create our own monsters here. But then we have 3 different emulators. We've got VCC, we've got XRoar, and we've got the MAME/MES. So when that discussion came up, I just asked the question, does it make sense to maybe not concentrate our efforts? But I realize there are different projects and there's different people involved, and I don't know the pros and cons to doing that. I'm somewhat of an outsider to the process, but it was just a thought I had, and a few good things were suggested there, and a few other things were mentioned. But I don't have enough history to have a qualified opinion. I just more like to ask questions. But I don't know if anybody else wanted to chime in on their opinions and histories on the history of emulations and maybe some prior feelings.
Well, I think you're going to have people in all 3 camps, and I don't think I think you're going to get them to give up their favorite emulator when you pry it from your cold dead hands. So, and this is one of those things that people feel passionate about, and one prefers one and another prefers another. And it's sort of like the toilet paper over controversy. You'll never solve it.
Well, my Ford's better than your Chevy.
Yeah, my Ford is better than your Chevy.
My computer can beat up your computer. Yeah.
Right.
My emulator can beat up your emulator.
There's first on race day and there's found on road dead. So pick your. I'm sorry, John.
Repair daily.
In fairness, I think the real reason for the separation comes down to prioritization of what's important to people. And I'll make my own statements about what I think is important to which group. I've never made a see for some of certain.
John, you are breaking up a lot.
You've disappeared.
John,
but so for XRoar, certainly prizes accuracy much higher, and nowadays MAME does as well. Although of course MAME is most interested in being part of a bigger structure of emulation, and so it has its own rules that sometimes make it not track or is in 100% top shape for a given system like the CoCo. But it comes down to we'll have prioritizations of what's important and different. I don't think it's which color do they like better.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear us clearly, John, but we are hearing every other word from you right now. So we're getting a lot of breakup on what you were saying, but I think we caught some of it.
Okay, I'll try to speak more slowly.
We need to work on our hardware-based handshaking here right now. So
just go on video and do it in hand signals instead.
So some of it is preference, some of it is prioritization to who's running the project. I think we heard some of that.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's prioritization about how the choices are made. The ease of use versus accuracy. The VCC, my opinion, the VCC guys don't really care about how accurate the emulator is, because I've shown them stuff that works that shouldn't work and stuff that doesn't work that does, and they just get a shrug. But they feel like they've got ease of use down pat.
And I would agree with that. Oh, okay.
I kind of disagree with their ease of use, but that's because they equate Windows with ease of use, which I don't make the mistake of doing.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, I've got a lot of problems with the VCC project. I don't think it's run very well. But at least they finally made it truly open source. And so maybe somebody could do something with it eventually. And that's the best hope I have for it.
Okay. So what is your favorite emulator? Would it be XRoar or MAME?
Yeah, those two.
Okay, it's kind of hard to pick between the two, right? Because I think they both. The problem that I see is that every single one has got something good about it and something that we wish was a little bit better or different. And so, the fact that there are 3 different projects and 3 different groups of individuals working on it, again, to me, I'm a dreamer, I suppose. But it would just be great if we could maximize these efforts and just work on one utopian project, but I guess that's just not the way things are in the world,
Yeah, and you're not including like the Java ones, the original DOS ones that are still kicking around, like Jeff Abaseurs and a few others too.
Yeah, yeah. But that is also leading me towards something I thought we would hopefully discuss at some point in time too, is the recent Ron Klein announcement where he's got this Raspberry Pi 3 running CoCo emulation, which I'm assuming is running through MAME. But I believe he has got it to be a very user-friendly CoCo in a box. And I'm intrigued by this. I'm probably going to buy one. It's probably got me wanting to buy a Pi now, which I never would have run out to the store to get anytime soon. But yeah, if I can have a CoCo in a box and just a neat way to take a CoCo with me and show it to people and stuff, that might be kind of cool too. And how does that factor into all these FPGA projects and other hardware-based projects too? Does this, now there's a third option.
Well, the
there's a few
market's so
hardware.
big.
Go ahead.
I said the market's so big, you got plenty of room for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. Very true. Very true. For me, this would probably be a home run if it's plug and play and I can play games on it and I don't have to configure it and I don't have to solder anything or assemble anything. I'm not afraid of a soldering iron, but I just haven't flexed those muscles yet. One of these days I'll get into that. So I prefer my life spoon-fed whenever possible. So I like a turnkey solution whenever I can get my hands on it.
Well, I am. I'm
Yeah.
scared to death of soldering iron. I've killed more things with a soldering iron.
They probably had it coming to them anyways.
They did.
Yeah.
I'm not
Richard,
afraid
I
of
know-
the soldering iron, but my soldering goo is not strong.
Yeah. I figure
And I have killed something.
my first few soldering projects will be on cadavers. I'm not going to try it on a live patient. I'm not going to try to learn how to solder on a perfectly good CoCo.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
just
got
grab a
Coco
perfectly
20
good
to
VIC
play
20 instead.
We'll sacrifice some Ataris and Apple IIs to get this
Yeah.
soldering skills down.
I'm
I just
using the
killed
word
my
perfectly
Coco
good
20.
loosely there.
Perfectly good. Bashing should be a two-way street, right? So, all right. So I think I asked you the question. I don't know if you had an answer for us, Mr. John Linville, but are you able to play any sound demos for us of your incredible sound hardware board you're working on?
Well, maybe, except I'm out on the back porch with a cigar. So. Not right now.
Okay.
Excuses.
On the back porch with a cigar, being fed grapes. So,
The good news is that at least the testing of the bank switching appears to work. I haven't actually put code, in a ROM and had it switch banks and run that way. But in terms of probing the signals and telling it to switch banks, the signals seem to probe correctly. So that part looks good. So should be a go on the hardware. Still coding up a demo for the fest, but I think I've got something in line there. So
very, very cool.
very. Well, I was going to say to Richard Crislip, I heard his voice. Richard, it helps if you grasp the cool plastic end of the soldering iron. You'll do less damage.
Yeah, I've got the scars to prove that.
Oh my goodness. Nothing like a
So,
little.
so I'm not the only one who's melted their hair with a soldering iron?
How many times have I confused my curling iron for my soldering iron? Damn it!
See me put benzomati.
Yeah, this is not a laser hair removal product, folks. So
It does work that way, but it's rather painful.
nothing grows back after that. So. So there was a conversation about updating to VCC. It's interesting, VCC being the Virtual Color Computer Emulator. I enjoyed listening to that story unfold on the CoCo Crew podcast when we were talking about, well, it might go public domain, and then now it's going to go public domain, and so we kind of heard the progress unfold over a few months on the CoCo Crew podcast, which was just kind of cool to. The great thing about the podcast is, I was just thinking about this before the show started. It's like, for somebody like me who either doesn't have the time or doesn't have all the knowledge and skills and have the vocabulary, what the podcast does for us in that news segment is it gives us, so many sources of information. It's the highlights of the mailing list. It's the highlights of what happened on the Facebook group and other things of retro interest too that aren't necessarily CoCo related, but might be CoCo related and things like that. So the podcast news segment is a great way to kind of distill all this information down, and then anything you find interesting, then you just click on the show notes and you click on those shows. But that was one of the stories that grabbed my interest. I started on VCC, and I'll be the first person to wave the white flag of truce, because I'm not here to bash any particular emulator at all. I like them all. I use them all. And I started with VCC. So VCC was how I started doing YouTube in the first place. And I think it was actually Curtis who pointed out, hey, but what's wrong with those red and blue colors?
Yeah, that was me.
And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. It's been so long since I used a CoCo, I forgot what the colors look like. But then, when I had to learn how to use XROAR, it wasn't directly user-friendly, because when you double-click XROAR, you get a screen of garbage. You have to drop ROMs into a folder. Now, yeah, that's not the hardest thing in the world to do, but if you've never done it before, it was a learning process, so I had to learn a little bit on setting up XROAR. MAME was an even a little bit more challenging one, because not only you have to drag in the ROMs, then you have to choose which CoCo you want to launch, and then when you launch it, then you got to go through another hurdle to actually load software into it. So from my experience, I think MAME is probably the best all-around emulator as far as the level of compatibility, but it's also the least simplest to use, so
I would agree.
Yep, that's definitely true. And there's good reasons for that. But that doesn't mean that people prefer, some people prefer the easy to use, even if it's not quite accurate. Others, prefer the accuracy, even if it's a pain in the butt. So
Right.
I think you're always going to have that stretch across.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Since you mentioned the podcast news, I usually put that together. And you mentioned that some of the stuff's not strictly speaking CoCo. The reason why I put those in there is because usually if it's in that category, it's a project that could have been done on a CoCo, or in my opinion, could have been.
Right.
And so it's sort of designed to be inspirational. Anyway, and then if I could also switch hats to my open source hat. So for those that don't know, I have some amount of cachet, shall we say, in the Linux world. The real problem with VCC, it is open source in terms of the sources on GitHub if you want it. The problem is that the governance model there is such that you've got kind of a tyrant maintainer, and I don't necessarily mean that to be pejorative. It's just that we've got somebody who wants to control every little thing, and that's not very conducive to getting a lot of good development in the open source world. And so that's why you've seen VCC kind of stagnate, in my opinion, is because even though it's open source, the people that are running the project don't really believe in open source. Is I guess that's the most straightforward way to say it. But I don't know if you want to turn this into an open source discussion. Maybe we can have that some other time. But that's the real problem. I'll just get that off my chest. So the VCC is stagnant because the people that are in charge of it just they don't want to. The whole community seems to develop these faces that pop up and that don't really believe in open source, and they believe that somehow having multiple forks out there or variants out there is bad, and while there are negatives to it, in some sense, the pluses is that people can actually make changes and develop code.
Right.
It's kind of the main thing that you want. Anyway, Sorry, I'll
I got
back
a
away
question.
again.
Is XROAR, is that strictly a Dragon emulator, or has that been changed to work like a CoCo now?
It's
It's
always
been CoCo for a long time.
yeah,
Okay.
it's forever. But yeah, it's both CoCo and Dragon, but it's not CoCo 3.
Can I
Okay.
talk for a second?
Yeah, who was that?
That was me. That's Rick.
Rick, yes, by all means.
Yeah. So I've tried all three of them. At first, I tried Maine, and Maine is not very beginner friendly. And I got so frustrated that I just sort of dropped it. And then somebody turned me on to BCC, which is, as you know, is not the best, but it certainly for me was the most beginner friendly. And I could bring it up, and I could have a CoCo right away, and I could load things right away. And it's not the most accurate as far as the artifact colors, and then somebody told me about XROAR, so I tried that, and I liked XROAR. And the only thing I don't like about it is that I haven't quite figured out yet how to make it so that, like when I bring it up, there's all kinds of settings that I need to set before it will do good things for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it works great. And then I close it, and then I bring it up again, and all those settings are gone.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's a way around that, and I just haven't learned it yet.
Yeah.
I think that you have to have command line arguments that set up all the settings or like a settings file. And I just don't know the secret password yet.
Yeah, either one
So-
of those is true.
Does XROAR is it supposed to store its stuff in an INI file at all when you set the settings, or it's not even supposed to do that? I haven't used it a lot myself.
I would assume and I would hope that the answer is it is supposed to, but I can't say with any certainty that it actually does. I know in the past I was able to get mine to at least default to the US CoCo, and so what I did is, because I'm running Windows, I modified the properties of the icon, and I just put -CoCo US after the whole executable path, and that seemed to work. Now the most recent version that I gave you, Rick, when I put it in the Skype group, is they actually updated it again just recently, and I think some of the parameters are now different than they had been in the past. So mine still defaults to CoCo US, and I think mine is. I also found that config file. I don't remember what it was called, but I was able to put a few things into a config file, and I think I am able to get it to stick to the important settings anyways. But again, I don't play with it enough to claim any expertise on that.
And the fact that you have to go through all this to learn how to do this is proof that Rick's right. It needs to be made more friendly. There should just be a settings, save settings in the menu. That's all they need to add.
I've had problems with.
Don't ask me.
I've had problems with even VCC saving its settings on modern versions of Windows, and the problem is that the default permissions on where it's saving it in program files,
right,
in the files folder,
Windows,
you don't have the rights to write in there, and so the simple solution to this is to go to the program files VCC folder, right-click on it, go to the security tab, go to add users, and say full permission, and then save it, and then problem is gone.
Right, I did something similar. I just moved mine to a different folder.
But once again, that's going against the whole beginner philosophy.
Exactly.
Again.
No, and that's
I hear you.
Yeah, that's kind of an oversight or undersight by the programmers or whoever made the installer to not realize those basic permissions. The previous version, before it went open source, it was basically a zip file, and you just extracted the zip file and stuck it anywhere. So you automatically had the right permissions to wherever you put it. Now it's running an installer, and the installer is running under whatever account it's running under, doesn't take into the consideration. You could also manually change the destination folder and not have it installed under C/program files. If you installed it anywhere else, that would, but again, we're getting back to all these things we're saying right now are things that we shouldn't have to discuss if it was a more encompassing design. Some of the challenges, right?
So I know that XROAR has some things that are going for it that I would prefer if I could get, if I could figure out how to do it, use it without driving myself crazy. I believe it runs under Linux. Is that right?
XROAR will run on anything.
Yeah, it runs on Mac too, and native.
Windows, Mac, or Linux. It's cross-platform.
I would love to run it on my Raspberry Pi.
That I couldn't tell you about, but does anybody else know if it runs on Raspberry Pi?
There's no reason it shouldn't.
No, if it runs on Linux, it should be good.
Yeah, that's something that Ron Klein could probably speak to as well, because he's doing the current Raspberry Pi CoCo in a box solution right now.
I think you'll need a copy of it for Linux ARM, of course, versus Linux Intel. But
right,
well, you'll need the right tools to compile it. But yeah, XROAR is native Linux development from that's sort of its native environment. So Linux ought to be the best platform to run it on, if there's any difference.
So that's a pretty attractive deal for me.
I wanted to mention on this call as a quick hack, as it were, to get VCC running most anywhere, because there's a package called Wine, and Wine allows Windows binaries to run on non-Windows systems.
You just stole my thunder. I was getting ready to put that in, because I run VCC on Linux via Wine all the time.
And as the person who actually bottled a Wine into an app along with VCC, I've got a VCC package that runs on Mac, and it looks like a native application.
Oh, nice.
So,
yep.
That's actually.
I just ran that, actually, to be honest. I just downloaded it after you mentioned it last time. It does seem to be not quite as stable as it is under Windows. Like, I've had to crash a couple of times, but otherwise it runs fine.
In my experience, too.
Which version of Mac OS are you running it on?
The latest, whatever that is.
10.12?
10.12.4.
Okay, that's interesting, because that's what I'm running it on, and I haven't had it.
It's not like it consistently crashes. I just had it crash a couple times, and I have not had that happen on Windows. So
I've had problems.
Are you doing something specific?
I was mucking with a whole bunch of stuff, so I'd have to see if I could reconstruct exactly what I was doing, if I can get it to consistently do it under one specific app or something. I was just fiddling with it. I wasn't paying attention.
It has a problem. It has a problem with full screen mode. It doesn't handle full screen mode very well, and it does have a couple of settings that throw it for a loop. But other than that, I found it to be quite usable.
Yeah. I was running programs under it fine. There was a certain couple things, and like I said, I was rapidly firing things at just see how it worked, and a couple things crashed. I wasn't really keeping track of it though, because I didn't really have time at the time. But I'll get more into it later when I have time.
Okay. There's an interesting thing about Wine, though, that I wanted to mention, since we want to get VCC to be cross-platform. Okay? Besides being able to run as a runtime, Wine has a development arm, as it were, that, as a library, that you can take Windows source code and load this library and link this library with the code as it's compiled. And if you do that, what will happen is you'll produce a native binary for Linux or a native binary for Mac OS that won't require the runtime. And it will actually run natively without the Wine runtime.
Yeah, that just remaps the API calls for the Windows calls to your native OS, right? If I remember.
That's what it does, yeah. And that gives you, now you're running under that machine's, once you get the makefile set up and everything for that, and you get it to load, then you very quickly, now you have it running and compiling on that machine, and then from there you can gradually start changing stuff in the source, rather than all at once having to go through. You can gradually go through.
It's not a complete rewrite at that point.
Right. It's a gradual rewrite.
Right.
And for that matter, a lot of stuff you can just leave it calling the Wine lib, because it really doesn't affect the way that, you're essentially calling a version of DirectX for that particular platform because that's what Wine has built into it.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
You can do a gradual port, gradually optimize it as you go through it, so.
Yeah, and then you put
that's how I do it.
If-defs, etc. You put in if-defs and you tweak it so it runs better on the other platforms, and it becomes a native binary that just runs with the Wine lib, linked in.
Has anyone tried running Mess UI with the Mess emulator? That's what I do, and I get a graphic Windows point-and-click interface for Mess. Seems to work fine for me.
Does that also launch the games themselves too? Because so you can launch the game through the GUI.
That's right. It gives you a pull-down menu. You can attach a DSK file, and then you just use it like VCC. You can open the do a directory,
right.
run a program. It's just gives MES a whole new front end.
Right. Yeah, I've used the MAME UI when I used to play arcade games in MAME, but I haven't tried extending that to CoCo. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's called MES UI.
You guys may not be aware, but the newest versions of MAME, which are also MES, it's now merged into one source line, have not so much a UI, but it has an interface on it now, which is built in, which is a comprehensive interface. It didn't used to be.
But now,
launch it with no arguments at all. It comes up, and it does have a mouse, so I guess it's it is a GUI because it is graphical. It's just not very pretty, but it is fairly functional. You can select the system that you want to emulate off of a menu. You can, once the system is launched, there's a couple hotkeys you have to know, but if you know those hotkeys, you can press it. It comes up with another menu that you can select to mount disks and mount the the software that you want and change the options, and then go back to the emulator.
Yeah.
It saves the options, so once you get it set up the way you want, it does save it. So when you
remembers, it remembers where you were last too when you go to open up a disk.
Yeah. So it's gotten a lot. MAME has actually gotten a lot more user friendly. The biggest problem I've had with MAME MES is because it emulates so many systems and there's so many people updating it.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, a lot of the coders don't validate their updates and patches. Somebody else will submit something for the 6809 core or one of the other chips that the CoCo uses, and it will temporarily on that release break the CoCo emulation.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing problem with MAME and MES.
Yeah, so what I've been doing is I've been finding certain releases and testing them to make sure that for a lot of the popular systems that I use all the time, that the code works and generally the thing is solid. And I've published for the Macintosh. I published a compile of that release on www.macmess.org, which is Tim Lindell's site. Okay.
I think that all feeds into the whole discussion that we've been having, is that all these emulators have their nuances and idiosyncrasies that makes none of them completely perfect, and I don't think there is a perfect solution. I think one of the things I was suggesting or just asking on that thread in the mailing list is, wouldn't it be nice in some utopian scenario where we had all these brilliant people working together on one holy grail emulator that addressed all the issues: cross-platform, user interface, compatibility, reliability, all these things.
Ease of use.
We've got these different projects and different people. It would be wonderful to have everybody work together. Again, that's a utopian thing, so unfortunately none of them are perfect,
I think VCC has the ability to be that, because its source license is such that you can adapt stuff from other, what happens, MES and MAME has a source license that is restrictive in some senses. And the way that they have that project set up, it will never be the perfect color computer emulator, because their mandate is not to get perfect emulation of one system. Their project goal is to get ideal, perfect, low-level emulation of as many systems as possible.
I don't know if that's completely true with XROR. XROR is pretty single-focused. It's, CoCo and Dragon emulation.
XROR is single-focused, but it totally lacks all of the CoCo 3 functionality, which is substantial and would require quite a bit of updates to get that in there, probably.
Right.
VCC already emulates a Color Computer 3 and has a very good interface. The only issues that it has is that it's not cross-platform, and if we can get the thing to build with a makefile with the Wine library and development toolkit, then we just we just killed that bird with that stone.
Yeah. Well, you kind of came late to the discussion too, because a lot of this we kind of already went over too. But no, I mean these are all. Yeah, you say I don't know that there's an answer. There are questions. I don't know that there's an answer. I think if there was any two projects that probably make the most sense, it would probably be VCC and XROAR, since they are more focused, where MAME is not. Even though MAME has got a lot of great things about it. But again, I'm not driving these projects. I don't know how to work on these things. I'm not the guy to fix them. I'm just smart enough to maybe ask some questions. There are people other than I who are the ones that are going to make some of these things happen. But yeah, it's a great topic. I think we probably beat the emulation discussion for now. Maybe we'll move on to some other things. I don't know what else you guys want to talk about as far as coming up to CoCoFEST, other things that were mentioned on the list this week or happened on Facebook or anything else.
I just wanted to know, there's always an answer. We just haven't found it yet.
Fair enough. The truth is out there, as Mulder would say. So,
right.
Is that David Ladd?
David made it on.
Yes.
Is it David, or is it Paco Atacte, or is it Drencor? I can't keep up with you, sir.
Uh-huh.
Which will the real David Ladd please stand up?
Yeah, just remember to touch the sheen.
I'm not going there. But it would have helped if I didn't have my microphone muted. Otherwise, I would have chimed in on the XROAR stuff earlier. Kieran did have a version that was building that was using the native graphics library on the Raspberry Pi, but that's been a couple of years ago. So it was running. If you download the, RetroPie, they actually use XROAR in that compilation of emulators for the Pi.
Oh, neat.
So that's an option. And the configuration file that you was talking about was xroar.config, I believe, was the name of the file, and it's stored in the directory with it.
Okay.
Which is how you set the machine, RAM, whether or not you need the artifacting.
Good stuff. Yeah, and the XROAR website is pretty good. Between the help file and the website, there's a lot of information there. I haven't taken the time to drill in and figure out all the options, but I'm the kind of person where if it functions well enough and it's serving my needs, I don't push anything further than I need to, because I've got so many other things to do with my time, and I'm inherently lazy anyways. So, but yeah, I do recall seeing those options in the past, and I've tweaked them as needed. D. Bruce Moore is saying he heard something about playing music out of the cassette port and thoughts, and that also got me thinking about. Are you so Curtis? You and I, when we interviewed the image producers, and we were talking about one of their products was the Color Learning Lab. I just got mine in the mail. I've got almost a near pristine Color Learning Lab with all of the cassettes. Do you remember what was on those cassettes? Was there any audio on there too, or is it just each one as an individual pre-programmed lesson?
I think it's just pre-programmed lessons, but honestly, I don't remember. It's been decades since I've seen that.
Yeah, I know, because I remember when we were talking about it, I'm like, man, wouldn't that be a lovely thing to have? And I finally got it. It is gorgeous. It's in the binder. It's got the book. All the cassettes are they look like they've never been played. They're just so clean. But I do seem to recall, like some of the educational software, maybe it was some of the Children's Computer Workshop, the Sesame Street company, were there certain games on cassette or educational titles on cassette where they actually had recorded narration and music and stuff, and the software would control and pause the motor and play audio through the cassette port and through your TV speakers. I seem to recall there being more than one program that did that on the CoCo.
Yeah, there was that reading book series that did that too, wasn't there?
Okay. I just don't remember.
The Pound of the Baskervilles and stuff like that. There was a set. I don't remember who. It was sold through Radio Shack. I can't remember who made it, but
it was kind of a neat way to take advantage of that technology, because it was an audio output device as well, besides just
data. You just do the motor on, audio on, and then if you had timed out your tape, now you had to take into consideration that some people had different tape drives and they would run a little fast, a little slow, which caused a bit of an issue, which is why I don't think it was used too often, unless you had like large gaps between lessons or something.
Yeah. So that was cool. Another discussion that came up on the mailing list this week, which I'll just try to pull up here real quick too, but it was started off by John Loche, and he said, I have never played a CoCo game ever. I'm a newbie to the CoCo. I grew up with VIC-20s, but now I'm back, and I would like to change this by playing some games. Can anyone recommend the top 3 CoCo 10 games or MC 10 games? And that opened up a pretty long thread. And so one of the first people that chimed in was Peter Satinsky of the Trash Talk podcast. He said, my 3 CoCo game favorites are Wildcatting, Sands of Egypt, and Quest. Darren A. chimed in and gave some links to some MC10 games, including Lee Patterson's Bouncy Ball, but he did mention these would require the RAM expansion. I chimed in and mentioned Curtis Boyle's Games List website, Neil Blanchard's Games Corner reviews on the podcast, and humbly mentioned my YouTube videos as well. I gave my list of being, like there's a lot of the Steve Bjork games like Zaxxon and Pitfall 2 and Donkey King and Sailor Man. Dungeons of Daggerath, I think we would all agree, is probably one of our all-time favorite CoCo games. Then that brought up the discussion of A space R and MMM and everything else.
It's A space L. That's
exactly, which is what I brought up because Curtis taught me that. It's easier on the left hand if you just do A space L. William Astle, William Astle chimed in, who was the guy who ported it from ROM pack to disk, and he's saying that he found AL to be easier overall. I don't know who Reitveld. Is it Reitveld or Rietveld? But he says, my favorite games, and Rick will like this, Temple of Rom, number 1, Canyon Climber, number 2, Downland, number 3. Rich Carrero said, I always had a soft spot for Project Nebula, but Donkey King and Zaxxon, and of course, Dungeons of Daggerath. Lee Patterson chimed in saying, I second Bouncy Ball. The author of the game probably would. Richard Lebreski, Double Back from Dale Lear. Rick's partner in crime, Sub Battle Simulator for OS 9, Interbank Incident for OS 9. 2 OS 9 games got an honorable mention here. Somebody else mentioned Project Nebula, but I never understood it because he didn't have the documentation. I had the same problem the first time I played it. Oh, you need 2 joysticks? Wow, what a difference. Sierran Anscombe chimed in and says, everybody forgets to mention these games, Airball and Lucifer's Kingdom and Rommel's Revenge. And then he mentioned some Dragon titles, Tanglewood, Maniac Miner, Jet Set Willy, and Rotab, which I am not familiar with. And Sub Battle Simulator. So these were a lot of people chiming in on what their favorite CoCo games were. And I know we had this
different list from everybody.
Yeah, everybody's got their favorites because everybody's style of game and preference of game is different. Some people are casual gamers. Some people like shooters or fighters or puzzle games, but that was a pretty good list. I thought this was a good time to bring up the topic again because I remember like a year ago I was wanting to do a video like this where we had even compiled a top 10 list, and I got distracted by something shiny. So it's probably worth bringing up that discussion again, and maybe a future interview we'll try to do that again where we'll talk about first our top 10 favorite CoCo 1 and 2 games, and then our top 10 CoCo 3 games, and get everybody to weigh in on that. But I thought that was a cool discussion. So I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on what some of your own favorite games are, and if you happen to be ones you wrote yourself, that's fine too. They can still be your favorites. They say your creations are like your children, so you got to love them.
I will say one thing, and I think Rick will get kick out of this too, because it was one of the most hated games for him and Dale. But I've had some young grandkids around here lately, and Dino Wars, or Dino Wars, you want to pronounce it, that's one of their favorites because they get to be a dinosaur and roar. They just love the game to death. They play it all the time. That's when you guys chose to rip the cartridge apart for them, wasn't it?
That's right.
I'd like to defend
one of our favorites here that hasn't been mentioned is
You're breaking up, Barry.
We'll never
I said
know.
one of our favorites we like to play here is Pegasus. It hasn't been
Pegasus and the
yet.
Phantom Riders. Yes, a great joust style inspired game.
Photon's one of my favorites still. It's just an awesome puzzle game.
Yeah, I haven't played that one yet.
I still like Zaxxon.
I heard a Zaxxon in the background.
Yeah.
And Rick, what did you say?
Raka 2.
Raka 2.
The old Robert Arnstein
the text adventure.
Text adventure.
Yep.
I don't know if I ever beat that one, but I've been toying with the idea of doing a text adventure as a YouTube video, And I think that might be one of the first ones I do. That one or possibly Bedlam, because it's probably small enough to finish in under an hour, I would hope. Whereas I think Pyramid, I don't remember ever beating Pyramid, but I just remember spending what felt like hundreds of hours playing Pyramid and
that stupid maze
and being lost in the desert and dying countless times. So
yeah, I would probably pick Racketoo 2 out of those 3 because Bedlam can have different endings depending on how it randomized at the
which is kind of cool. Yeah,
Racketoo's more of a fixed plot. So
yeah.
CoCo Shanghai, I waste a lot of time playing also.
There's a plug for Shanghai.
Pyramid, I think, was a ripoff of the Colossal Cave of the computer game. There was one of them that was. I don't remember which one it was, but I think it was that one. Something with a D.
Well, it's a ripoff of Mahjong. Talking about Shanghai.
Well, we're talking to the author. We're talking to the author of Shanghai here, so I think he could probably tell you.
Well, I'm glad he can't reach me.
Okay. Oh no, it is a Mahjong game.
It is a Mahjong.
Mahjong's been around for hundreds of years. It's a tile game in real life. So.
Bruce Moore says Wumpus. Now that was a game.
It was.
Hunt the Wumpus.
Yeah. Big West Purdue says, "How about some love for Downland?" I think Downland was mentioned. Oh,
yeah, that's cool.
Bruce Moore, here's something about playing music out of the cassette port. Then he says, how about generating digital WAV files out of the cassette port? I think that would require you playing the tape and then just recording that sound as with a digital sound recorder. I'm not sure, though. You guys have any answer on how to take an audio cassette and turn it into a digital file?
If I remember correctly, the cassette port's at 1 bit, so you'd have to digitize it as 1-bit sampling.
Okay, 1-bit sampling.
I know the digitizers on the CoCo 1 and 2 that used to do it used to use the joystick ports. You could get 6-bit sampling and you get better fidelity.
Yeah, that's one thing I've never messed with on emulators is I've never tried loading a pre-recorded cassette into an emulator. I've always used either a disk image or a ROM image. Okay, Bruce is saying not a cassette. What are you saying then, Bruce? How about generating digital wave files out? Oh, generating wave files out of the cassette port, firing sound out via programming. Okay, that's what he's saying there. So is there a way to fire sound out of the cassette port via programming?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty well cassette writing routines doing, and Nick did that for the old Tier City Model 1 and 3 games back in the day.
That's how we got sound there, right? Like the Dancing Demon and things like that. That was sound going out of the cassette port?
Yeah, and then Model 1 and 3, that's the only sound port they had. So
yeah. And so how are you generating sound that translated to the speaker? Because the speaker is not doing digital to analog conversion or anything like that, is it?
For which one? The Model 1?
For the Model 1, yeah. How did that translate from bits into tones?
The internal analog to digital converter in the CoCo can be routed to the speaker, the cassette, various things. So it's all one and the same. You're just choosing where you're going to route that sound. So
yeah, and you can enable the 1 and 6-bit sound at the same time too, can't you? I think that's what Daggereth does. It do the heartbeat with 1 bit and the rest with 6.
Yeah, I can't remember if you can enable them at the same time. Depends on whether the multiplexer allows that. I've never used the 1-bit sound, so. Okay,
so, but it sounds like that is possible, Bruce. You might just. I'm probably not doing your question justice, so sorry about that. What the heck just happened here too? I have emojis on my screen that I don't want. I don't know how to get rid of the emojis here. But Ghost Rider is here from Australia. G'day, Ghost Rider. And if you're asking if I can play Ark Survival Evolved right now, unfortunately I can't right now. We're in the middle of an interview here. But yeah, and I just wanted to let you know, guys, that we're about an hour in, and we kind of tentatively set this for about a 2-hour time frame. We got plenty of time to talk about whatever we want to talk about, but just to give you an idea on where we are in the show right now. Okay, so Bruce also says, by the way, I recorded my 17-year-old voice into a game that I sold to T&D Software. Freaked me out to find that a decade later. I had lost the original. That would be kind of cool. I don't have any recordings of things I did with my CoCo. Like, I wish I even had like what Rick had, like even like a VHS recording of some stuff I had done in my old basic games and stuff. I've got nothing but what I think I remember about my old programs. I've got no physical copies or recordings of them. So that is kind of cool to find a slice of the past and be able to look at it again, you know. Definitely cool stuff. Oh, here's one of the things I also want to bring up here too. I want to bring up, let me pull up the email because it was recently sent out. Tony Podraza, the president of the Glenside Computer Club, sent out an email showing the floor plan. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, and I'm going to show you guys. Has everybody had a chance to look at that, where you will tentatively be if you are an exhibitor and you have a table? And if not, I'm going to pull it up on the screen here in just a minute. I'm not sure how well this is going to translate, so bear with me as I try to switch focus on what my software is looking at here for just a teensy moment. So let's go to full screen. And I'm not sure how well you can see this, but this is the CoCo floor. The top of the picture here is outside of the exhibitor room. This is where all the talks take place. And so
the auction?
In the auction and everything here. So they're showing how we enter. This is also not showing up very. Let me try opening this with Google Sheets because it's sent in as a Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't get much bigger than that. Okay, so this is the exhibitor area here, and this is where the talks will be taking place and the auctions and things like that. These table arrangements, I don't know if these are the same because it looks like it's cut off right now, but I would imagine these back tables here are where the auction items were before. But they're showing what looks like a partition here. So I'm not sure if this space here is where the projector would be and where the talks would take place. I'm not sure where the seats are going to go for sitting. But usually we set in this kind of area here, and this was also some auction items back here. This is kind of the talk area. And then this is the exhibit hall. And let me see if I can't zoom in on this. How do you zoom in on a Google spreadsheet? I don't know. Is it just control arrows? No, control shift mouse wheels not doing it. How do we go into the view here? Can I zoom in? I don't know. Can you guys see this okay on your screen? I'm not sure how it looks.
Barely.
Barely. Let me, you know what I could probably do? I could probably just zoom in my browser window. That'll probably work. Here we go. So I'm zooming in my browser window. Okay. So this is the, let me zoom it back one where I can fit the whole thing in. We'll go down to about 150%. So this is the table layout of the exhibitor area. And this looks fairly similar to last year because Brian, the music man, was in this corner here. Over here, Cloud9 Tech was here. This is where... okay, I'm not sure what Petrie Technology is, but John Linville's in this corner. I think he was in the opposite corner last time. So I think Cloud9 was over there. So John Linville's here, Petrie Technology is here, Cloud9 Tech is
That's
here.
Boise, I presume, right?
Is that Boise? Could be. Boise Pete. Yeah, Boise Pete. Pete Technology. There you go. So Neil Blanchard's got a nice little corner here. He's got a nice island of Neil's computer service here. So it's good to be Neil Blanchard over here, huh? Look at that with all his real estate.
Geez, John, did you tick Neil off? He split off from you.
Oh, that's something else I want to mention too. I'll mention that in just a second.
It was actually representing. There's Neil, Mike Rowan, and Jim O'Keefe are all sharing space.
Retro. Okay, there we go. We got a lot of people in there, so that's a nice shared space. Okay, Mike Rowan and okay, very cool. Yeah, lots of space there. I'm just having some fun ribbing with them anyway. So then over here we have Frank Patel. We have BG Enterprise, Brian Goers. I don't know if I pronounced his name properly. Here's Richard. Is this you?
Yahoo!
Yahoo! Richard's got a table. Hawk Sauce got a table. Griff Art, that's Linda. Is that Linda Podraza? Is that Tony's wife? Griff Art?
I think so. Hawksoft is Chris Hawks and his wife.
Okay. Now, Brendan Donahue, even though it's listed as Brendan Donahue, it's Donahue, and that's Brendan's CoCo VGA project. Then we have Bruce Moore over here, right around the corner. Andrew Weiler. Lost Wizard Enterprises, that's William Astle. Here's me, the OG, over here. Off to the right, we've got Wally Grossman. This is Jim Brain here, Retro Innovation. So Jim was actually where Brian Goers was last year in that kind of area. So Jim's over here. Jim's got two tables. Evan Wright is here. Down here on the back wall, we've got Brett Gordon and the CoCo Boot and Fuzix, Uzix, Weezix, Isaacs. John Strong of Strongware's here. That's kind of similar to where he was last year. Richard Bear, Computer Chess Explorations, John Mark Mobley, and Bargeman Research Labs over here too. So this is the current exhibitor layout. Looking good, looking really good. Yeah, so Bruce, you and I will be neighbors. I might have to come by for a cup of sugar or some peanut butter or jelly or something like that. Very cool stuff. So I want to mention something else, which is really a great segue and callback to the discussion of last week, because last week we talked about
all right, my buddy Max Headroom.
What does it mean to be a member of the CoCo community, right? And I thought that was a great discussion. So what had happened was, again, there was many things I wanted to do, many things I planned on doing. I wanted to bring a bunch of T-shirts, couldn't afford it. Okay, so now I'm like, okay, at least I'm going to bring a CoCo, and I want to bring a CoCo, and I want to be able to have Popstar Pilot playing at my table, and that way people can come and see the game and play the game and hopefully buy a copy of the game and maybe want to buy a T-shirt or a coffee mug online that says Popstar Pilots or I'm a Coconut. So as a nice little thing and an attraction. And then it turns out I can't even fit the little TV I have in my suitcase to bring. And now I'm worried about, I was worried about bringing my CoCo, but I figured, you know what, I'll try the CoCo, but I can't bring the TV. So I sent out an email to the Color Computer mailing list, and within minutes got multiple responses. Frank Patel was one of them. Neil Blanchard chimed in. A bunch of people chimed in saying, and you know, this is a tall order. When you say, hey, does anybody have a spare CoCo 3 with 512K RAM? It's not something that everybody just has extra laying around the house. In this community, maybe I'm wrong. But
yeah, you're wrong.
Well, I have 5 Hewlett-Packard 1706 flat screens.
Yeah. So, but I threw out an email asking if anybody in the Chicago area who would be coming to CoCoFest could maybe bring a loaner CoCo 3 so I could show off Popstar Pilot, and the response was overwhelming. And so I think we're going to have multiple. And Neil Blanchard came in and says, yeah, I'll bring a CoCo and I'll bring a monitor and I'll bring one of my Sega gamepad adapters so we can play it on a Sega gamepad. And that game really should be played on a digital controller anyway. So, yeah, this a ton of people chimed in a reasonably short amount of time. So you want to talk about a community. That is community in action right there. So yeah, I am so glad that at least some of the things I wanted to do are going to come to fruition, and I'm really, really excited about helping have Nick Morentis have a presence and be there in spirit this year. You know, I think the game is worthy to be seen by as many people as possible. So.
And thank you, Steve.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And the royalty checks you keep sending me have nothing to do with this. So. I will sing anyone's praise for a recurring monthly paycheck.
Extra plugs if the tip jar is full.
I'll even talk up Dino Wars if I have to. So yeah, I thought that was a great thing. So so getting back to favorite CoCo games, you know, Temple of Ram is up there. Double Back is up there with me. Dungeons of Daggorath, definitely one. Zaxxon, great game. Donkey King, great game. So many great games. Those are some of my favorites. Draconian, great game. That's the problem. When it's hard to remember. I mean, honestly, there are so many games and so many good games. It blows the mind. It boggles the mind sometimes. Farfall, Popstar Pilot.
You'd have to pick the best 3 to your mood at that time. Like sometimes I want to play a long game, so I'll play Dungeons of Daggorath. If I want a quick short game, Donkey King kills me off pretty quick, so that's a quick short game.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Oh, man.
Xmas Rush.
Xmas Rush, another great game. We need an Easter Rush, you know? We need a game for all seasons and all occasions.
I thought about reskinning Xmas Rush with rabbits.
Rabbits and eggs, yeah.
Rabbits and eggs.
I guess it's hard to say what is asking people what's your favorite game, because I mean it also depends on what their favorite genre is, or you know, some people like arcade games, others like card games. So you probably have to say, well, what's for each person, what's your favorite arcade game? What's your favorite puzzle game? What's your favorite strategy game? Yeah, otherwise you're going to get a big mishmash.
Yeah. The great thing is
my favorite CoCo arcade game is Downland.
Downland's a great game.
Non-arcade is Shanghai.
There you go. But I heard that Shanghai, isn't that just a rip-off of Mahjong?
I refuse to answer that. Grounds might incriminate me.
Plead the fifth.
Wow.
Who's the author of that that's on the call, by the way?
Well, that was the whole problem. We couldn't get officially licensed titles, so we had to have these hacky clones. So this is a Mahjong clone.
Who's the author that's on the call?
Oh, that's Rick Adams.
Rick Adams.
Yep. I would like to congratulate you for writing an excellent rendition of Mahjong for the CoCo.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yours is the only one that had the dragon come through when you won.
Yeah, a little piece of it anyway.
Yeah, not the whole thing, unfortunately. Still want to see that sometime.
I'm kind of salty about that. Well, I'm bringing the discs.
Well,
so
that might be another project for future
Yeah, you can give the updated one with the full dragon.
Yeah.
He left the rest of the dragon on the Last Ninja.
Oh, that's a sore spot. Ouch, John.
Oh, burn.
Why not just stab a hot poker in his eye?
Yeah.
Of course, Steve would have wrote it better anyway, right?
Oh, absolutely.
In BASIC.
Oh, man. I'm enjoying working on BASIC again, too.
Failure is an orphan, but everyone loves a good
do this BASIC tour?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
You going to do the disc BASIC tutor like you're doing for BASIC?
I think it's probably worth going over a handful of commands that seem, applicable. That could probably be done in a short amount of time. I haven't looked at the book yet. I mean, I'm kind of already doing saving right now to disk, but yeah, it's probably worth doing that. I haven't thought this completely through. I have some basic ideas. When I started redoing it again, I realized I started this a year and a half ago. And last year, I wanted to have it finished before this CoCoFEST so I could have a project to show at CoCoFEST, and you see how well that worked out. So I'm kind of, I don't want to say in a rush, but I want to say I'm hyper motivated to finish going through the chapters so I can start working on a project. So doing Disk Basic may or may not take me away from a project, so I'm not sure if that's an immediate priority for me, but it's worth doing. I also think it's probably going to be worth a second series of going through the differences between CoCo 1 and 2 Basic and CoCo 3 Basic with the extra modes, but I probably won't do that right away. But I probably will. But I'm also anxious to jump into learning assembly, which I wanted to start last year too.
Ooh, that's fun.
So there's a lot of things I want to do. It's just, finding the time and managing the time. So I think that's Disk Technicolor Basic. A handful of commands are worth talking about. And I think CoCo 3...
Yeah, the ones you need for a game, like for your project type thing.
Like if you want to open and load files and save files and write data to disk and load data from disk. Yeah. I used to cheat and run a third-party editor, draw all my graphics, save them as a bin file, and just load them into the PMode 4 page and get and put everything that way.
That's what I did for a Rainbow. It was like a geography test, and it would sit there and draw the maps of all the countries, and you had to guess the capitals or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's neat.
And what I did was exactly I rewrote that program and brought in the name of it is escaping me, but screen dumps rather than have to draw it.
Mm-hmm.
Sped the program up immensely.
Right, because you don't have to code the graphics at that point.
I want to see Steve do an OS9 tutorial.
Yeah, Curtis and I talked about that. Yeah. Curtis and I talked about that.
First time users view of OS9.
Yeah,
Yep. Then we'll watch the rage quit in full force.
Yeah, procrastination and everything.
Curtis was showing me Basic 09. He showed me some of the stuff on there, and it is wicked fast.
The tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Wait till you get into OS9, you'll be drowning.
As daunting as OS 9 is, I would say it is probably a good platform to learn assembly in, because the assembly tools that are under OS 9 and the system calls that you have that.
Yeah, you don't have to do everything by hand.
Yeah.
So,
I was watching Curtis compile and run programs and switch between programs running and programs compiling, and showing me Basic 09. I mean, the multitasking ability of it, I was really impressed with.
Yeah, because I think I was playing Thexter and Rescue and Fractalist while I was assembling and editing in another window or something. They weren't all running at full speed, mind you, but
then showed me Basic 09 at the same time. So you switch between like 2 games, an assembler, and another programming environment on a CoCo.
The fact that you don't have to muck around with setting the bits in the hardware and for the screen modes and whatnot, you can call, you can just call. Essentially, you can call a print if you want to print something. Because I mean, it makes it a lot
all your text
easier.
fonts are supported. You can turn the mouse tracking on automatically, so you don't have to sit there and track a mouse. If you're doing a mouse game, you just tell it, you go draw that stuff and get back.
Yeah. It makes it a lot easier to concentrate on learning the actual assembly commands rather than having to learn the assembly commands and the hardware and how the machine works at the same time.
Yeah, you can do it in smaller chunks.
Yeah. I don't think there's a wrong way to the path of knowledge, but I also think for me, I like doing things the hard way. So I think as much as that is a cool idea, I don't think I want to fast track my journey in assembly too much. I do want to go through some struggle.
You will.
Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Because especially when I'm looking at the panel of people here and the things you guys have done, you've been through the struggles. And as much as I know I would have a million people help me, like Nick and Curtis and Simon Jonas, and there's a million people that could help me, and I'll definitely knock on those doors. I want to experience some of these trials and tribulations myself. They're character builders. They give you an appreciation, and you learn more. You really do. If you have to figure crap out, you learn it. And you know what I mean? And so the best lessons in life learns those hard lessons, So I want to get my hands dirty, and I want to sweat a little bit. I'll borrow some help, but I want to look back at whatever I did, whatever piece of crap I end up putting on that plate, and saying, you know what, this is the worst freaking piece of burnt fish you've ever seen, but damn it, I worked on it.
And to be honest, it's been rather fun watching Rick kind of get reacquainted with all this.
He's been
going through the same thing, like trying to remember how he did certain things, and then it comes back, and then all of a sudden he's on a roll. And it's been really fun to watch.
That's neat. Yeah, even for me. Yeah.
Hey, Steve?
Yeah.
Now, I've downloaded so far all your basic tutorials.
Yeah.
That you've done, all 19 of them. And I was thinking I was going to put them on I have a video assembly program. I was thinking of putting them on a DVD, complete with menu. Have you already done that? Because I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
I haven't done it. I was thinking about releasing it as a DVD, but I don't know how, because some of these things are like 45 minutes each. I'm not sure how many you can get on one disc. I'm thinking you might get about 4 per disc to have decent quality.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll try it and see what I come up with.
Yeah,
you can't drop the quality too much because you're trying to read the text on the screen, from the manuals. That's the problem. If you compress it a lot, you could fit a lot, but
right.
I'll give it a shot and see what it looks like.
Yeah, let me know, and just hit me up. I have DVD authoring software, and I have a web service that can produce them and send it out, but I haven't tried making it. I mean, to be honest, I'm surprised anybody watches them at all. So when you say you watch 19 of them, the first thing I want to say is I'm sorry. Because it's just like, that is like 19 hours of your life you'll never get back, and there's nothing I can do to make that up to you.
Watching you rage quit when you forgot to type some lines, it's totally worth it.
It is so strange because I've spent 2 years trying to create a channel of playing games and get people interested in my games, and the things that people are more interested in is me talking about a 35-year-old dead language. That is getting more views than a modern game is getting right now. So you can't predict what people are going to enjoy. And I'm just glad that anybody's watching it, because for me, I'm doing it for me. And then I figured, initially I thought there might be a couple of kids who might want to pick up on this, but there's adults who are watching it too. So I find that, I didn't expect that, and I find that interesting.
Hey, we're kids at heart.
Yeah, exactly. So
playing this computer.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I programmed for like 6 years straight on the CoCo every day of my life, and it's just like anything else you do, it's like a foreign language. If you speak it a lot, it becomes fluent, it becomes second nature. You can think in that language. But when you haven't done it in a long time, there is a whole new process again. So I like that process. I like the journey. I like the struggle. I could have probably read that book in 2 or 3 weekends and just read it and started programming, but I also like the idea of sharing the journey, although it's taken me 1.5 years now to do it. But sometimes I think some things are worth drawing out, I'm glad you watched it, though. I definitely appreciate that.
And it sounds like you and Rick are kind of going on the same journey here, going back to the days of yore and remembering how to do things, and then, having those aha moments. And I remember why I did that. And
yeah, it's neat.
Well, I'm so scattered. I've got HDD. When I was teaching computers to my students, I would explain to them what happens to me in the basement, and that's how you do full interrupt-driven multitasking, because I'll start something, I'll get interrupted, I'll be over here doing something now, I get interrupted, next thing I'm doing something over here, and eventually I'll get wrecked when I started with, and I might get done.
Sounds like your scheduler needs some work.
Going back to assembly language programming, I was going to say OS 9 will also force you to learn proper position-independent code, as opposed to just writing and using all the instructions. Versus if you do it in BASIC, I would suggest using the def user calls and then writing sections of code that you call from BASIC again, so that you don't have to try and learn everything all at once.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I'm going to make the migration from one to the other. I know Alan Huffman's been doing a bunch of blogs on basic optimizations and assembly integration. I was probably going to look at some of those as well. So yeah, when I get ready to make that transition, I think I've got, especially like the people here in this panel, I got a lot of people I can lean on to ask questions on how I should take the next step. So that's great.
And there's
Barry.
more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, there's no right or wrong way. I mean, Barry has some good points there, but also, like, if you're trying to program a high-speed game, you might want to program to the metal and skip doing, position-independent code, because it does slow it down a little bit. So it just depends on what your focus is.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme, I would love to learn everything and learn all the different ways. Time crunch is going to limit what you can learn and how best use that knowledge and stuff like that. But we got people here who are programming bare metal right now. We have Rick doing his. We've got Nick, who did Popstar Pilot, and who did, not only did he write that bare metal game, but he wrote it on the bare hardware when he could have taken an easier path to do that, but he didn't. So, I think some people like the struggle or the journey or the authenticity of doing things a certain way. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do it, which is kind of cool.
I appreciated Nick's blogs while he was writing that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some games, you do have to write to the bare metal, and you need to drop position-independent coding and stuff like that to get full speed.
Yeah.
It just depends on the project. I mean, it's whatever. Yeah. I mean, Nick or Steve, hopefully what you get out of it is that you're happy with the result, no matter which way you took.
Right. It's really about learning a new language, because to me, it's almost like closure, because assembly language is something I didn't attempt while I was still a teenager. And I actually went to college for programming thinking they were going to teach me assembly then, and they didn't. And I was like, well, this school sucks. And so I just never learned it. And so I look back saying, man, I wish I learned assembly. And I think that's a recurring theme of everybody who's into retro is like, what could I have done then? Or with the knowledge I have now, what can I do now? And so I think that's a recurring theme of nostalgia, possibly closure, possibly just crossing something off your bucket list that you didn't get to. So for me, it's definitely a bucket list item, because I wanted to, I didn't, and now I've got no excuse other than time not to do it. So
yeah. I think the other thing is too.
I got to CoCo. I graduated with a programming degree from Akron University, and I didn't want to lose, because halfway through the degree I realized I didn't want to program for Ohio Edison, because something happened there that made me realize, no, I don't want to do this for a living. But I didn't want to lose what I learned, so I bought the CoCo. And they did teach assembly. It was IBM assembly, but they taught assembly.
Okay.
And the thing I love about the CoCo, you're right on the you're right there down to hardware level. I tried to learn, transfer that over to the Amiga, and there's a layer there that I just couldn't get my mind wrapped around. And the PC wasn't much different. So that's what I like about the CoCo.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people saying that. I don't know the language yet, but I've heard that over and over again, that the 6809 is a joy to program for people who have worked on other chips and people who know assembly somewhat well. So I hear that a lot. I believe that to be true, and I'm looking forward to having that aha moment one day myself too.
Yeah.
There is something better than.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
There is something better than the 6809 now. 6309.
Nick Marentes. Nick Marentes is coming around to the dark side. Next thing you know, we'll get him to write an OS 9 app too. So.
Well, let's not get insane here.
But wait a minute. You want me to do what to my processor that's currently working?
Just cut off its legs, throw the head away, and replace the entire thing. There's nothing
It's
wrong
no different
with that.
than upgrading from Windows 3.1 to Windows 7.
It's a forklift upgrade.
How many people have a 6309, I wonder?
That's a great survey to throw out there. I've got one
here.
Yeah, I've got one in my current
I've
CoCo
got 2
3.
going here.
I'm gonna buy the full package from Cloud9 when I get to CoCoFEST. I'm gonna buy the 512K. If he's got the 6309 in socket, I'm gonna grab those too.
I saw a cool. It was on the mail list. I'm pretty sure I saw where someone did an upgrade from 6809 to 6309, but they did it in such a way they could flip between the two if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
one
neat.
of the questions come across. Well, why would you want to do that? Because I can.
Because I can. Good answer.
But there are some. There are some programs that I've found that I've tried to load and they didn't work because I had a 6309 in there and they wanted 6809.
Really?
There's very, very few of those. You'd have to be using illegal instructions on purpose to do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it was under OS 9 when things were happening that way.
There it is. Illegal.
So
that's probably the native. That's native mode versus emulation mode. That's
so.
different. That's a different situation. Native mode on the 609 pushes extra registers on the stack. So if you get an interrupt and you have a program that was expecting stuff on the stack to be in certain spots, on a 6809, it's not always in the same place. That's why you have the incompatibility there. But that's just native mode versus emulation. If you take a 6309 and run it in emulation mode, you won't have any of those problems.
Right. I understood that.
Yeah. Bruce Moore says he's got a 6309. Frank Patel says I've got him on all but one of my CoCo 3s. So it looks like there's a decent number of 6309 owners out there.
Well, there's multiple advantages. I mean, one, the chip's much more powerful, as everybody knows, but it runs like way cooler. It takes way less power. They generally last longer because of that too. So, and the rest of your CoCo doesn't overheat as much either. So,
yeah.
My CoCo 1 needs a 6309 because I just blew it up today. Not today, this week.
Now here's a dumb question. There's nothing that prevents a 6309 from working on a CoCo 1 or 2 as well, right?
Nope, that's perfectly fine.
So I might want to practice my soldering skills on one of my spare CoCo 1 or 2s to go through the process of replacing a socket and a CPU once on a machine I'm not worried about if it doesn't survive the surgery, you know?
Yeah. I mean, a CoCo 1 already has a socketed CPU.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the CoCo 2s do.
Okay.
What does?
CoCo 1.
I never cracked the case yet. I didn't get a disco disk controller all the way in. I thought I did, and I didn't. I turned it on. I got this beautiful moire across the screen, and that was the end of it.
Ouch.
Bruce Moore says I've got the 6309 and the 512 upgrade to reduce temperature and extend the life of my CoCo 3. There you go. I think you get a discount on your homeowner's insurance too if you've got one of those. So. Is you can save a bunch by bundling your car insurance and homeowner's insurance and add a 512 and a 6309.
With Geico.
With Geico, yes.
I guess
one of the reasons I've never upgraded mine and probably won't until my CPU burns out. Hope it never does. Is because if I'm writing a program, like for instance the CoCoFlash software that I just finished writing for Jim's CoCoFlash stuff, I want to make sure that it runs on the widest available possible array of platforms, which generally means writing it to the 6809 code.
Yeah, but the 609 emulation mode runs exactly the same anyway, so.
Yeah.
Let's have two machines then.
Mostly.
How does it not?
Any problems? I've never come across any
Unless
problems.
you're running illegal instructions, it shouldn't have
Yeah.
any change whatsoever.
Hey,
Because
Steve,
everything else works identical cycle to cycle as the original.
Yeah.
getting back to that DVD thing I was talking to you about,
Yep.
I just did a size check on the folder that I have all those 19 that you have. It's only 2.5 gig. It'll fit on a 4 gig DVD just fine.
Now, when you're saying fitting on a DVD, you're not talking about converting it to then a DVD video that plays back, but just a DVD data disc that contains all the files?
No, it'll be a video disc.
It'll be a video disc. Okay. That'd be interesting to see. Yeah, so I'm almost to chapter 20, and I think there's 34 chapters in that book. So if the whole thing could be squeezed on one disc, then yeah, I would definitely, because it doesn't cost me anything to have it put online if somebody's crazy enough to want to buy it. I could definitely turn that into something if somebody wanted to buy it and play it at home and learn how to program in BASIC and watch an old man want to smash his keyboard.
It'll be Stevie's Color Computer Learning Lab.
Watch Grandpa get frustrated and almost have a heart attack.
Better to do. Go to www.thewebsiteisdown.com. There's some really good videos on that.
Is that a real link? The website is down.com?
www.thewebsiteisdown.
All right, you have my curiosity. Hold on one second while I pull this up. Off screen, of course. The website is down.com. What a cool URL. Okay. Okay, and is this your website?
No, it's something I show to students occasionally.
Okay. The website is down. Okay. The website is down. Remain calm. Episode 3. Remain calm. It demonstrates his special procedures for hot swap hard drive replacements using his steel-toed boot and his razor-thin patience.
Oh, these guys are good.
Oh, that sounds good. I love that. I've seen some of those videos where the guy says how to upgrade your graphics card, and he starts doing stuff, and he breaks eggs and pours eggs into the tower and starts throwing all kinds of food and crap in there and stuff like that. And those videos are hilarious.
Remain calm will get you that. That's the one. But the sales, they're all great.
Big West Purdue what did Big West Purdue say? Did anyone ever find the 256 color mode that was apparently detailed in the original specifications of the Gimme? Did anybody find the elusive 256 color mode? I know Nick has an article about that on his blog. No, I would just throw out one more thing too. I'm going to switch scenes for just a second. But on my website now, I added this new feature. So if anybody's watching right now, and there's about a dozen people watching us, and probably half of them are us, but there's a few people watching us right now. I put on my website, ogsteviestro.com, I've got a link for Color Computer Links. So if anybody was saying, hey, I need to find out about these things, I've got a lot of things here that I've tried to assemble and compile. If there's things you want to add, let me know. I'll add them. But another thing I added to my website, which was Alan Huffman's suggestion, which I think is a great suggestion, is I've now added a calendar. So since we scheduled this CoCo Talk and we all agreed on the time we were going to do it, I went ahead and scheduled the CoCo Talk. I put a post in the mailing list. I put a post in the Facebook group, and I put it on the calendar in my website. So if anybody in the future says, hey, what's going on with your new broadcast and what's your next show going to be on things that we have scheduled, they'll be on my calendar there. So I thought that was a great idea that Alan Huffman had to put that out there. So if anybody's watching right now, because I know there's a few people here like Jimmy Alvarez, who is a little bit younger. Jimmy's parents might not be old enough to have used a CoCo. But yeah, so for some of you young whippersnappers out there, if you're interested in the color computer and where to find out more about it, a good place to go to would just be go to my CoCo links on my website and find out a bunch of stuff. Mark Johnson just made it here. Hey, Mark Johnson, how are you? Mark Johnson says, hi, OG. Hello, Mark. Good to see you. Mark has been one of the people crazy enough to watch my programming videos as well. So thank you, Mark. And we're just talking all kinds of stuff.
I thought everybody knew that the 256 color mode was fully documented on the last page of the Necronomicon.
Yeah, I think Bruce Campbell has seen it then, right? When he did Army of Darkness. So the Necronomicon. Oh, man. Nothing like computer.
They implemented it on the CoCo 3 FPGA, didn't they?
Yes.
Glenn Hewitt is here as well. Hi, all. Hello, Glenn. How are you? You guys are catching us on probably about the last half hour of the show, but the show will be available for replay. Even now, I think YouTube's got a built-in DVR function where you can scroll back, but why miss all the live action and excitement that we're having now? The Dancing Girls will be coming out here soon too, so you're not going to want to miss that. So
a quick question too on your calendar: is that just on your site, or can you subscribe to it so you?
Yeah, it is a Google Calendar, so it is shared through my Gmail address. It's on there as a Google Calendar, and I think there's a little plus thing on the bottom where you can just click on the plus and add it to your own Google Calendar if you have a Gmail account.
So if we added some of our specific interviews that are upcoming and stuff, it would automatically pop up in somebody's calendar and they go, "Oh, we're interviewing so and so."
Yes. So as we add things, and I think right now nobody else has the ability to write to it, but I could probably share it in a way where I could add other Gmail people to add to it too. So like Curtis, if you want to add to it and stuff, yeah. So if you guys want to add things to that calendar, I'll be more than happy to give you permission to do that. Like Shecky's bar mitzvah and things like that. These are all important events that have to be accounted for. So,
Festivus, kind of thing.
By the way, that website is down thing I told you I showed it my students. I was teaching adults.
Yeah.
So if you view that, don't get too upset about the F-bomb. I wasn't showing it to children.
No, I can certainly relate to having razor thin patience. The more you work with technology, the more frustrated you get sometimes, it seems like.
It's the trials and tribulations of the help desk.
Yeah. So, Mark, you've been awfully silent this whole time. You're nodding your head knowingly many times. But how are you today, Mark?
I'm doing fine.
Excellent. And how's the weather by you today?
Bright and sunny and dry.
Excellent. Rick's giving us a big thumbs up. All right, so what else we want to talk about here today, gents? CoCoFEST.
Well, going back to the FPGA stuff, Roger also has 256 color mode going on his Nano too.
Okay.
I'm just actually uploading a picture to the chat window right now.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. I'm not sure how I'll be able to display that, but I don't know if I can display that.
You should be able to drag it off and then just display it on your screen normally.
That might be the thing. Yeah. So let me try that. I'm going to switch over. Okay. So give me just a second, and I'm going to switch over to full screen. Okay. So this is a picture that Bill Noble just took. This is a picture of this is the computer right here too. Right?
That's the Nano.
So that's the Nano. And it looks like it's got a couple of PS2 ports on it. You've got a VGA connection over here. Over here, this looks like the flux capacitor that's coming into it.
That's my Bluetooth module.
And then over here, I love scan lines. I freaking love scan lines. And getting scan lines on a LCD panel is nice. So nice. Look at zooming in on these scan lines. Look at that scan line goodness, this RGB glory. That is awesome. That's a really good looking picture there, Bill. I remember Alan Huffman putting up some pictures too where he got this like 80 column text mode and then turned on scanline emulation too, and it just looks like the old CRTs, and I'm so nostalgic for that look. This CRT look, which is so hard to get without a CRT. That's really nice. And this is 256 color. This looks like there's a lot more than that there. This looks really good.
Full 640 by 480, 256.
Wow, and what a funny picture too. You got a woodpecker poking holes into Noah's Ark. Yes, so somehow they still made the trip.
Worst nightmare.
Yeah, right. That's cool. That is very cool. Yeah, I like I say, I'm kind of. Yeah, Big West Purdue says Steve's series on the basic programming book really takes me back to when I got my CoCo 2 as a kid for my birthday. Very cool. Glenn Hewitt, the wide original extended basic book was the best programming book ever. Yeah, I think we can all agree. Oh, here we go. Here, John Linville just put up another one. Let me see if I can't switch over to that 8-bit color NTSC. I've seen this demo before, but we'll go ahead and bring it up. Okay, so I need to switch my software over. Hold on one second. Let me switch my software to where I'm looking at my screen. Full screen. All right, here we see the lovely and talented John Linville here. We'll make him full screen, and we'll play some.
This is John Linville.
this weekend at the 23rd annual last Chicago CoCoFEST, I gave a talk on the
You may need to
NTSC
share the audio.
8-bit artifact color mode
He must have his mic
that
turned
is
off.
available on the CoCo 3. No,
it's on
the YouTube. This will be
but tell me if you can hear it now.
A screencast to try to replicate that event for those who were unable or unwilling to attend. So I hope you enjoy it.
I don't know if you really want to play that.
Let's talk about the NTSC 8-bit color mode.
How do we? Let's get to the.
Again,
I'll fast forward through till we get to the actual pictures.
Chicago CoCoFest on the 26th of April in 2000.
There we go.
Gamma correction.
Here's one of the stills here of some of the extra colors. Let's see if you got some more pictures here. That looks pretty good. And that looks really nice right there. Okay, that's very cool. Nice colored photograph there. And I'm just getting the I'm getting the look and the hand signals from the wife here too. So we are going to have to wrap up probably in about 10 minutes or so. Yeah. So this is John. If you want to speak to this better, this is 8-bit 256 color artifacting over NTSC composite. Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it actually
really
actually exists on real CoCo.
And there's Steve Bjork. It doesn't do Steve Bjork justice though.
Composite on a NTSC machines. But you know.
What's Steve doing? Has he left the group entirely? Haven't heard a thing from him lately.
He was on Facebook not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago.
There's John Linville and glorious 8-bits.
Actually, speaking of video players, because John did that video player in the CoCo 3, there's been a couple of CoCo 2 video players out the last week or two, too, that are pretty impressive. There's a semi-graphics one and then a P-Mode 4 one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, a couple things showed up in the Facebook group, too, about bonus colors on the CoCo. Oh, I don't know who that is right there. Who's that picture of?
Is that Curtis?
The way this NTSC mode works is because basically the color computer thinks it's outputting 16 colors, on 4 bits. But because you have 2 of these pixels that are close enough together, the display displays it as if the 2 pixels are blended together, because that's the way NTSC a transition between 2 different colors more than a certain number per line, it blends it together and changes it into 1 pixel. And since each pixel has 4 bits, the pixel on the display ends up having the equivalent of 8 bits.
One of the cool things about Cloud9's high-resolution converter to go to VGA, it does have the artifacting.
Well, you should see Brendan Donaghy's too. A lot of work has been done there as well. Cloud9's, not to take away from it, it definitely does. I saw that last year, and I know it's getting updated too. So some of the pictures that showed up in the Facebook group are not only your normal artifacts like the sky blue and the orange, but when you get these dithering patterns, like when you do either horizontal checkerboards or vertical stripes, there's ways to create a lot of extra bonus colors, and there was a handful of those images that were shown in Facebook this week. And those, again, anything that has to do with an artifact is, in my simple mind, is it's taking advantage of some, let's just say, imperfections in analog technology. But
Max used it too.
When you go to digital, and now you're outputting VGA and you're going to a digital panel, there's some science and sorcery involved now to create these analog anomalies on there. And so, as you mentioned, the Cloud9 Super Expectra board does a good job, and the CoCo VGA project that Brendan Donaghy is working on now, I've seen a lot of his videos, and he's going to do a presentation at CoCoFest. He's not only getting the oranges and the blues, but all the yellows and greens and everything else too, all those bonus colors when you mixed orange and white checkerboards and blue and white and blue and black and stuff like that. So it's really impressive when people are getting all these extra colors out of a black and white machine that we were thankful and lucky to see 4 colors in the first place. And when we started getting 6, 8, and 9 colors, it's kind of neat. Now, what can you do with those colors? Because of the fact that it's a at least on the CoCo 2 side, it was kind of good in the background. Like when you look at something like Pegasus and the Phantom Riders, and it looked like you had trees and mountains and things like that. You couldn't really use that on a per pixel basis, and it would look kind of weird as like maybe a video game character color. So it's kind of has some limitations in where you can apply it effectively, I would think.
It was really good on graphic adventure games like Sands of Egypt.
Quest. Yeah. A lot of graphics adventure games did that very well to make like trees and mountains and skies and waters and stuff. I don't know how effective it would be on a per pixel basis, but I am not that versed in doing major type productions.
It reduces your effective pixel resolution.
Right.
So if you have a composite artifact color that relies on having red next to a blue or a checkerboard pattern, then your minimum pixel resolution is now, effectively 4 pixels, 4 times the size of a normal pixel.
Right.
So conceivably, you could put it on an animated character or whatever, not just a background, but you'd have to keep your effective pixel resolution to be, such that it would hold that pattern.
Yep. All right, guys, I'm going to try to ask everybody if we can wrap this up now in the next 5 minutes or so, because I have, I think, a bunch of hungry people out in the living room who are going to want to go eat dinner here soon. So I do apologize, but we did plan on doing this a little bit earlier. Yeah, technicalities.
I have a quick question I want to ask everybody on the call. I may have mentioned it before, but the RGB to SCART cable that I designed and whatnot, which I really don't have the resources or the time to sit here and produce. Again, I just want to mention, if anybody wants to add that, be that Rick, or Retro Innovations, Jim Brain, or anybody else wants to sit here and produce these cables, I'm sure the community would be thankful for them.
Well, I'm actually expecting my SCART adapter to be arriving here within the next week.
But you're buying the parts and building it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what I'm saying is if anybody wants to actually build these for people, I have no objection. And as a matter of fact, that's why I posted the information up publicly, as all the wiring and whatnot. So.
Well, we'll see how my first attempt goes at it. We'll go from there.
Yeah.
And Rick, I just noticed you posted a picture of your bomb thread opening screen there. Did you want that to be put on for people to see, or?
Sure, it's fine.
Okay, let me find it. So
it's in the Skype chat. So
yeah, hold on. I gotta push a couple buttons here to bring up the screen on my program. I have to move this off screen before I share screen so we don't get that vertigo effect. Here we go. So this is it, and we let Rick speak to the significance of what we're looking at here. I think most of us on the call know what this is, but for anybody watching who doesn't know what this is, I'd rather let the expert.
Oh, well, this is just a game that I did 30 years ago and tried to sell to Andy, and nobody wanted to buy it, and so it sort of languished for 30 years, and it was in a little plastic box full of discs in my basement. And one day I went down because I was curious and wanted to find that, and I couldn't find it. And I've looked several times, and it's lost. So I don't have the source discs anymore, but we discovered a gameplay video of it, which does happen to be on YouTube. And my kids found that. They remembered playing the game when they were little kids. And so they went down in the basement and found that VCR tape, and we looked at it, and then we, put it on YouTube. And then I kept trying to find the discs and couldn't. And so I'm just somebody taught me how to use an emulator, a number of people, and so I'm programming again, and I want to see if I can do this. So I'm porting my own game from a gameplay video.
So is this technically a clone of Bomb Thread?
I don't know what you would call it.
With all of your port that down, am I?
The disc that the source code is on is the one that the label has fallen off and the disc has fallen behind the dresser.
I think it's in a warehouse someplace right next to the Ark of the Covenant.
Yes, it is. It's a national treasure. We need Nicolas Cage here to help us with this national treasure.
But watching Rick's progress here, because he's posted a couple of videos for some of the people in the Skype chat and stuff, because this is an animated screen. It's not just a flat screen like this.
Right.
Where actually, kind of draws things around and stuff. Like, he's made a lot of progress in a very short time. It's pretty impressive for somebody who hasn't touched it in 30 years.
I've actually gotten to the part where you can actually move it around and move boxes around. So I have some very, very limited games left.
That's very cool. And so just because so this is CoCoTALK number 5. So and this started in the Skype group from CoCoTALK. So it's been less than 5 weeks' time. You've basically reinvented a game you wrote 30 years ago. You've got a title screen, you've got animation, you've got things that are working. So in less than 5 weeks' time, that's absolutely amazing to me. And even just this picture alone is amazing. But the fact that you've got working game code and animation and playability, that's and I mean just
right. So I wouldn't have it done by CoCoFEST.
Yeah,
I'll have something to show you.
Yeah,
no, you'll have it done by CoCoFEST just next year.
Yeah,
have to come back and give another
what's really
keynote.
Ironic is the copyright. It's copyright 1984. Well, I'm just emulating the original screen. So it really, originally I put 2017, and I thought, oh, what the heck? Just make it be exactly the way that it was back then. So it's kind of ironic that I have it done.
That is cool, though. That is cool. Well, you need to put some more hidden code in there, too, so when people hack it, you can have little hello messages and everything else in there. So.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that is absolutely amazing. That's probably a good enough image to leave everybody with there as we wrap up this week's CoCoTALK and as I address my starving family. But, yeah, so this has been another great talk, and I definitely appreciate everybody who was here in our call. We have Rick Adams with us. We have Nick Marentes, Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, John Linville, Richard Chrislip,
yep,
and Mark Overholzer, Rick Adams, Bill Noble, Barry Nelson is still here. Who else did we miss? Who was here and gone earlier?
Hey girls, say hello.
Hi.
Barry's. How many daughters, Barry? Is it 2?
Yeah, I got 2 daughters. Leanne, the older one, is the one who wrote the some of the menuing software and some of the machine code for the programmer for the Coco Flash.
That's cool. That's cool. I think I saw your daughter last year at CoCoFEST. Hello, Leanne. And Ron Klein just showed up. Ron Klein, I'd love to have more time to talk to you, but we're definitely out of time for this week. I just want to remind you all that this week's CoCoTALK is sponsored by Popstar Pilot Crunch, the new sugary sweet cereal that you can get containing crystal meth that will really put a bounce in your day. And so make sure you come out to CoCoFEST in Lombard, Illinois, April 23rd, 22nd of 2017. And thank you all for being here. I can't thank you enough. Another great talk. Thank you, everybody in the audience who's been watching. Ron Klein and Glenn Hewitt and Jimmy Alvarez and John Linville and Bruce Moore has been here, and In Tempo Gamer has been here, and Curtis and Glenn and Jimmy and Glenn and Mark Johnson has been here. As I'm scrolling backwards, Frank Patel has been here, Bruce Moore has been here. So yeah, thank you everybody. Ghost Rider, Chappers. It has just been a hotbed of conversation, and I appreciate everybody who watched and everybody who joined, and look forward to next week being live at CoCoFEST as we live stream from the fest, and hopefully we can have a in-person CoCoTALK too. And when we're not having a TED Talk and other talks and presentations, maybe we can get together and do another live stream of CoCoTALK sometime next weekend in between the other 4,000 planned and unplanned events. So, and David Ladd is back. That's the other person who wasn't here. So David is here. Or were you here before? Did I just, because your face just showed up again? I don't remember your face being here before. Did you? Because I know a few icons have kind of moved around on my screen. I'm getting confused. I'm getting dizzy. All right, guys. I got to run. Thank you all for being here. CoCo forever. CoCoFEST is next weekend. We'll see you all there. Be there or be square. If you're not at CoCoFEST, then go play with a damn Atari and leave us alone. All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks for doing this, Steve.
No problem. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Bye-bye.
See you guys.